chats with a professional. Oh, 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 oh. A chats with a professional. When smiles is so good. A chats with a professional. Oh, 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 oh. A chats with a professional. When smiles is so good.
Do you think that Baba Obasanjo could be on the stage while these Boko Haram people are doing what they are doing?
The objective of the private organization is slightly different from...
Nigeria is the most important country for education. The collapse of culture in Nigeria. Even with cheating, we can't pass. We've not done enough. There's still more. Join us.
And you never regret that you did.
For about a year and a half now, Nigerians have been under a new administration led by a retired General Muhammad Buhari. Of course, in 2014, we were all witnesses to the heated campaigns that produced a new government. Just like witnessed in the United States of America recently, Nigerians were yearning for change, and of course, change they voted for. So today we are going to be looking at the economy thus far. Are we indeed seeing those changes as promised by the current administration? What lessons have we learned from the mistakes of past administration, and what is the way forward? Today on a chat with the professional, I'm going to be having a regular with whom we had earlier looked at the formation of this government some months back. But today we are going to be having a review of the performance of this administration. Sit back now, relax and enjoy the show as I take on this short break. My name remains Martin Sobu and I'm sure glad to be with you. Please stay. A tourism practitioner and of course a public affairs analyst, the group managing director Nanet Hotels Limited, Ini Akpabio. You're welcome to the show once again.
Thank you, Martin.
In our last conversation, we largely reviewed the formation of the new government led by Muhammad Buhari, and of course the challenges in setting up the executive arm of the administration. Now, may we review the performance of the government so far? What would be your opinion regarding the achievement of performance of this government?
Well, I would like to say that we must be balanced in whatever we say. And after an administration has been in power for 2 years, it must have made some positive gains and may have done better. So we have to look at a holistic picture of what the Buhari regime has achieved so far. I would like to say that if we look at the parameters that make up a good administration, we'll be looking at issues like security. We'll also be looking at issues like corruption, the fight against corruption. We'll be looking at issues to do with the economy, and we'll be looking at, lastly, the issue to do with the welfare of the society in its entirety. And so if I'm to give my assessment after 2 years of this administration, I would like to say that in terms of security, the Buhari regime has really gone very far in trying to stabilize and make Nigeria more secured. The Buhari administration has really done a lot in her fight against insurgency. It has done a lot in her fight against the menace of Boko Haram. And as you know, outside Boko Haram, there are so many other religious bodies which the government has been fighting. So they've really made a lot of strides in that. And if you look at the local governments that were under siege, especially in the northeastern part of Nigeria, the number of local governments that were virtually annexed from our country have been brought back, and there is a lot of rehabilitation of their persons. And there is also a lot of concern for those who are outside their areas of domain and who are normally referred to as internally displaced persons. There's been a lot of hue and cry and a lot of government positive intervention in their welfare. If you also look at the issue of corruption, the corruption fight has been very dogged, and the government has not spared anybody in her effort to rid Nigeria of a very bad toga of being a country that is very corrupt. And when you look at the recent intervention as regards the judiciary, you see that the government does not seem to accept any sacred cows in this particular fight. And so we just pray that that fight will lead to its culmination. It's one thing to arrest people, which they have been doing. It's one thing to take them to court. It's one thing to take what they have stolen from the public treasury. But lastly, is another thing to have them detained or imprisoned. And so we are hopeful that the Buhari regime will actually take this to its final destination. Now let's look at the economy. The economy has been a bit topsy-turvy. It's not been the best we thought we should have had. And it started, for me as a person, it started from the Buhari administration's choice of those who should be ministers. It also went on to the Buhari administration's collapsing of the ministries to make fewer ministries. And specifically, I'm looking at the fact that there seem to be a lot of ministries with the wrong ministers in place. And this has not impacted very positively in our economy. There's also, I find that the bringing together of the power and the works and the housing ministry into one ministry, under one minister, it's also a bit burdensome. So when you look at it, it's not been very good for the economy. In addition, of course, like I said, the choice of ministers has led us to a situation where you cannot pinpoint a particular minister as being in charge of the economic team, or even identify an economic team, so to speak. And this has led to a lot of interesting decisions in terms of trying to get the economy up and going by the current administration. Lastly, like I said, there were 4 issues. The last issue is to do with the welfare of people. Yes, people are groaning. The currency is exchanging at alarmingly very poor exchange rates with major currencies. People go to the markets and the prices of goods have doubled. Inflation, as far as I can see, is in the region of 100%. And also we see that prices of all items, right from fuel prices to the prices of electricity and so on and so forth, have gone up. So the welfare of everyone is threatened, and the money we have is not really buying much.
Very well said. you talked about the fight against corruption, which of course is an issue largely on the lips of most Nigerians. There's this feeling by a lot of Nigerians that the country is being ruled as though we are still in a military regime. A case in point being the arrest of many officials of immediate past administration of Goodluck Jonathan, a lot of whom are still in detention with court orders largely disobeyed, for their release on bail. What would be your opinion regarding the fight against corruption as we've seen over the last 1 year or so?
Yes, there are two aspects to your question, and the most important thing is you have to identify specific areas where the government has erred or has gone against the rule of law. And I would like to say that that has not really been established. Even in the case of Dasuki, the law gives you windows to manipulate. And I'm sorry to say, if you utilize those windows, it's not actually illegal. And in answer to specifically the Dasuki case, where fresh charges are brought in, and that may lead to him being legally kept in detention, that's not breaking the law. Again, I want to refer to the issue that happened very recently regarding the judiciary. And there have been a lot in the social media and even in the official media in the country. And a lot of persons have reacted to it. But also, it has not been pinpointed that the Directorate of Secret Service went about that particular intervention breaking any of the laws, and they were able to give evidence, so to speak, that they actually followed the process of the law. So some of these things are more to do with people's thinking. There's a lot of bias, and it's got to do with opinion more than facts. But where I may want to add to this war against corruption is that I believe that while fighting this war against corruption, I would have loved a situation that the federal government would have looked at the laws itself, and in the process they will be trying to do that as well, to see whether we need to look at certain laws to make it faster to sort some of these cases. Because if you follow the law as it is now, some of these cases may take up to 10 years, and the people are still in court. So that's the first thing I feel the administration should have focused upon. The second thing is that while fighting the past corruption, we'd also like to know what is this administration doing, especially to use technology to fight present and future corruption. So what are we doing to stop this looting, so that from today and tomorrow these things will not occur? And so I would also like the administration to pay as great attention to the present and future looting, because if that is not the case, we find what is happening. There are some persons that accuse the government that even while they are fighting past corruption, present corruption is taking place. So you can't be running a race and be looking backwards.
Yeah.
Yes, you won't be able to move forward at a very good speed. So they have to clear what is at the back, but also look forward and say, look, we must keep that terrain clear.
Thank you very much. Another issue you just raised is that of exchange rate and inflation. I am more interested in the exchange rate. Do you blame the government for the free fall of Naira, in terms of value, or do you see a situation where a few individuals are holding the country to hostage? Because we have situations where many money transfer agencies have sprung up overseas, a number of which may not even be registered, and you see a situation where you have, in a twinkle of an eye, someone issues foreign bills in foreign countries, and naira value dropped instantly in relatives' accounts in Nigeria. So what's your opinion regarding the exchange rate?
Well, as a business person, and I did study business administration, if we look at the theory behind currency exchange rates, those things are normally determined by so many factors, including, of course, the strength of your currency vis-a-vis other currencies. And the strength of your currency are tied to factors like your export capacity. And in Nigeria, where we had this problem in the first instance is that we have suffered a decline, a massive decline in the prices of our major export commodity, which is oil. And so that made it impossible for us to have sufficient dollar equivalents to back up the strength of our currency. So when you look at it in that light, you have to look at two issues immediately. One is that did that administration, do they have any power over the global price of crude oil? And the answer is no. So that is pure circumstantial, and there is no government in Nigeria that could do anything about the fall in oil prices. But the second aspect is this: even when the oil prices are falling, are we producing at optimum level? And the answer is no. Could our government have done something to ameliorate that? And the answer is yes. So what I'm getting at is that management of the economy that will lead to devaluation of our currency is not done properly. We need to manage the output of our oil so that even where the oil prices are low, we should be producing at our peak levels. And I believe that the highest we produce in this country is about 2.2 million barrels per day. And now we are producing less than even 1 million barrels per day. So those two consequences, a lower price in oil prices and then a decline in the output, have damaged badly our currency values. The other aspect is that while you're looking at oil as bringing in foreign exchange, you also look at issues like foreign direct investment. You also look at inflows of other countries' currencies into your own country. And then we also have to ask the administration, have you done anything to truncate or reduce those inflows? And the answer is yes. If you recall, in the beginning, as a manner of speaking, the president was not very charitable to Nigeria and Nigerians. And this actually did set up a lot of negative perception of investment flows into our economy. If you notice the body language and the speeches of the president currently, he has graduated from that negative perception he gave to the investors to a more positive one. But that did a lot of damage. And what did that do? It reduced foreign direct investment into our country. Now, the second aspect is that the central bank also, and because, like I did say at the beginning of this discussion, because we don't also have a very robust economic team, the central bank also panicked. And the way they stopped inflows on and outflows of our currency And even added to that, the way the fight against corruption went, people very urgently stopped investing in terms of hard currency into our economy. And so people abroad who would have sent in money to Nigeria held on to their monies. They found that if, and we ourselves were in a bit of a quagmire, because people suddenly realized that they could not access foreign currency to service, education, and so on and so forth. Now, all this had negative impact on the value of our currency. And then, if you look at it too, lastly, we started, and is still ongoing, an exchange rate regimen that, when you look at it, is not really obeying the natural laws of demand and supply. And this has always never worked very profitably for any country. And so you have a certain currency tariff for people who want to go for religious pilgrimage, for certain operators of our economy, and then you have another one which was on free fall for the majority of persons. And there's been a cry that we should collapse those two into one. And when we collapse it, there could be more inflow of foreign currency into the Nigerian economy, and that will lead to a greater valuation of our naira. So when you look at some of these issues, I would like to say that the management of our currency regimen has not been as ideal as it should be. And rather, what we have done is that we've committed certain, what I will call aspects of financial suicide that has made, you can imagine the exchange rates now. It is so wonderfully low that anywhere in the world, holding up the naira is a very humiliating experience.
I seem to agree with you there on your last thought, that holding the naira is like clutching a tissue paper overseas. Having said that, what would be your advice to the managers of the economy, including, of course, Mr. President? As a matter of fact, a lot of people are of the opinion that the president should reshuffle his cabinet if visible changes must be seen in reviving the economy. Are you a part of that school of thought, and what would you say to the president or government of the day regarding the reviving of our economy and, of course, reversing or reviving the confidence of Nigerians on the government?
I think the first thing I would like to say to Mr. President is that there is nothing wrong with experimenting, especially in a situation like this that we find ourselves. But there's something very wrong in the aspect of going in the wrong direction. And everybody is telling you you're going in the wrong direction, and you refuse to turn and go in the right direction. And for me, going in the right direction will include either shuffling or replacing some of his ministers. That's one aspect of going in the right direction. Two, creating a viable, discernible economic team that is allowed to work unfettered. Three, the banding together of some of the ministries. We need to look at it. I believe, and I will still, I don't know about so many other ministries, I'll still think that we should unbundle the power, the housing, and the works ministry. And after unbundling them, we must get the correct ministers with the correct experience in those areas, which are emergency areas, to really tackle those ministries. And for crying out aloud, I have also looked at some of the ministries that were brought together, and what I discovered is that the only change so far that seems feasible to the eye at the cosmetic level. It's just that rather than have each having a minister, you only have one minister looking after 2 ministries or 3 ministries. But the entirety of the ministries have remained. And I think they form the bulk of consumption. So I would like to know, how much is it that we are saving by removing 3 ministers and collapsing to 1 minister, when we have allowed all the permanent secretaries, directors, everybody down in those ministries to remain? It doesn't, to me, make so much sense. My understanding of collapsing would have been the whole hog. For instance, I'll give you a very clear example. If you're doing Ministry of Information and Culture, for instance, which are 2 ministries, the former Ministry of Culture and Tourism, yes, and the Ministry of Information and brought together.
Yeah.
I believe that if you're doing that, you must have the same number of PEM secretaries, which is 1, as you would have had in 1 ministry, yeah, the same number of directors as you would have had in 1 ministry. And that means, and then you collapse even the parastatals to have nearly the same number as you would have had for 1 ministry. In the absence of that, you have done nothing.
There hasn't been any change.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, what would be your advice to the citizens if we must be out of this economic quagmire?
We are prayerful that even the little cloth we have will not be taken totally from us. We also have to pray for the nation. Not much into prayers, but I think this is a time that is required. We also have to reach out to those who are close to Mr. President and inform him that there's really a lot of problems at the grassroots levels, and where he has been ill-advised. We would like to say that, please, we who are the majority of the citizenry would like him to know as a fact that something needs to be done. So that will be my advice to all of us as Nigerians. Those who can speak out must speak out. And we must tell ourselves the truth. We should not go about hiding behind all these issues that will affect us positively. Those who are in positions to speak out have to speak out. Even in interviews like what you're saying, we must tell ourselves the truth. This is no more time to play politics. It's not also time to be sycophantic, because the survival of our country is actually could be threatened.
Thank you once again, Akpabio, for sparing your time and sharing your thoughts with us again on the show today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, that's how much time would permit on the show A Chat to the Professional today. Come next time, we are, as usual, going to have another professional come talk to us regarding an issue of either national or global importance. But till then, I remain Martin Sobu, saying stay blessed, and I'll see you again.
A chat with a professional. Oh, oh. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu. A chat with a professional. Oh, 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 oh. A chat with a professional. With Martin Sobu.